Right. All right. We got Deb, Jan, Jeff.
Strong team.
Ah,
Hey, guess who, after being out for what, 4 weeks, 5 weeks for the surgery, came back 5 pounds lighter.
yeah, he
Yes.
texted me. Congrats, man.
Wow.
That was total shock. I wasn't
It wasn't a
expecting
shock
that.
to me because I'd seen you every week and you kept getting leaner.
But I kept eating more. That's what's
I mean,
weird.
But more of what?
it's
Well,
probably Jeff because you've been so restrictive for so long. Your body had got
Yes.
time to rest and
Yeah.
stink and replenish, and it was like, oh my word, thank God we're eating like a somewhat normal human being again.
Well, that's true. I mean, it wasn't junk. I mean, it was all protein, vegetables, and fruits, But
Yeah. So, like your body every 12 weeks, if not more, needs a break, which is one reason why we program in the 1 weekly breaks at least every 12 weeks. And then two, your nutrition, like your calories were so low for
yeah.
so long, your body was just so ready to just suck in all those nutrients.
I mean, I was starving. I mean, when I got out of surgery 2 days, I was like, God, I can't stop eating. And I thought, I'm going to be careful because I'm going to gain weight. So I was watching what I was eating, but wow, I was like really shocked when I looked at that scale. I was like 5 pounds.
I wasn't, because you were like, because remember every week when I saw you, I was like, well, I guess I only saw you like 2 times, but like I asked you what you weighed because you look leaner.
Yeah, well, I
Mazel
was.
tov.
Yeah. Hey, and I had a great workout. It was good to be back. I feel great. Everything was good. I actually increased my weight on some of the exercises, so all good.
Awesome. Well, all right. Well, today we kind of have a big agenda, so we're kind of jump into it. And so what we're going to do first is we're going to talk to Deb and see how she's doing, because Deb, you look a lot leaner too already. And going to talk to Deb and go over her experience and whatnot. And then go over it. I'm going to do sustainable weight loss after. And we're going to, the first 3-week series on this. The first is how to boost your metabolism and unleashing essentially your fat burning potential. But first up, Deb, if you could introduce yourself and kind of talk about how you found Just You Fitness and kind of how you're doing.
I'm Deb. I needed a kick in the pants to get off the couch. And you came up on Facebook. I don't know if a friend had visited or what, but you came up on Facebook and I picked up the phone and called. And because I know that I can't do it by myself, so I needed coaching. And the Hall of Fame you've got in that room of people that have come and have gotten results was kind of like the deal seal. So
awesome. And what were your pain points? Like, why were you looking for to lose weight or to get a personal trainer?
Because I had gained like 35 pounds, 40 pounds over the course of I want to say COVID. And I didn't like myself. The things that I was doing was just, to me, self-destructive because I am a woman of a certain age. So I'm like sliding down the slide toward injury and bad health. So I thought, if I don't get out of this, between this rock and a hard place, then I'm going to be in trouble in a couple of more years. So I can't do it by myself because basically I'm very lazy. If it's,
that's not true.
if there's an easier way to do it, I'll do it. Well, ask Dylan, bless his heart. He has to put up with my crying, my whining, oh no, not again. And that's the kind of thing I have to have somebody to push me. And plus, you guys hit me right in the wallet, which is a real fast way to get my attention. So if I'm having to, to do this, then by golly, I'm going to be there when you're open. And I'm going to do what you tell me to do. And thankfully, what you guys do works.
What do you think?
Morning, I was down.
Sorry, go ahead.
What?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What were you down? And then I'll ask my question.
I have lost, what, 31 pounds since January? No, when did I first see you? December, wasn't it? But then I took a vacation. I went to Kenya. So, yeah.
Kenya. Awesome.
Yeah.
What do you think were the key bad habits that you had prior to starting that were doing the most damage to you?
I love sugar.
Yeah.
I love fats. I love fried, salt,
Yeah.
fried, just, yeah. Sweets, did I mention cookies, cakes? Doesn't matter. Chocolate, vanilla, doesn't matter. Ice cream, give me a spoon. I'm going to sit in the middle of the kitchen floor and I can do this. No guilt.
And how were you able to kind of overcome that, or what did that look like for you to kind of leave that behind? Was it a cold turkey? Was there I don't know. What did it look like for you?
I wanted to write it off to depression. I'd lost my dog. So that gave me a real good excuse to, to have a pity party as I, scooped up the ice cream. So without the dog, because he was a bruise, just a big bruiser. Without the dog, my walks, my hikes, my bicycle rides, my camping trips, all of this, it was no fun. I didn't want to do it. And so I sat in the corner and boohooed. For the most part. He had to have surgery, so he was out of playing for about a year before he finally passed. So I would feel guilty, going outside to play without the dog, because I was like, this is miserable for him. And it just got easier and easier to do nothing. I was developing that wonderful habit. So I needed somebody to break it. And thank you, Noah.
Hey, I was just a witness. You were the one putting in all the hard work. Because she fails to mention that, although she'll be like, this again, and then she just does it.
Well, I also visited a nutritionist in Greensboro that put me on just this slam diet that I knew was very temporary and restricted eating. I eat twice a day, lunch and dinner. I can have 4 ounces of lean protein, leafy vegetable, and 4 ounces of certain fruits that have a low glycemic, and twice a day. No sugar, tons and tons of water, no artificial sweeteners, none of that, and no exercise, which was, I was wounded. What do you mean I can't exercise? I couldn't get my heart rate up over 120 because I would be cutting into critical mass there. So exercise was, and if I do exercise, I have to take, eat another portion of protein 30 minutes before and then 30 minutes after. So to kind of fuel that. So I was on that for 2 months. I got results. And now I'm going into a chapter 2 where I have got to build up my wind, my strength, my endurance. And so I've started exercising in preparation for, and I've incorporated a protein drink in the morning for breakfast, whereas I would skip breakfast
Mm.
because listening to what you have to say about metabolism and cardio and all of this, I've got to put more protein in. And of course, like I said, I like shortcuts. So if I can scoop it out of a bag and whip up a shake, and bang, I'm good for the, and then I can start exercising.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, Deb, when you went, so before starting, cookies, salt, fat, all that good stuff. It sounds like, it seems like you're pretty much a type A person, and typically type A people can just turn it on or off. They make a decision, they stop doing it. I'm not saying that's you. How difficult, or what did that look like? You transitioning from habitually eating things that weren't conducive to getting to where you wanted to be, to be more athletic, to have less injuries, to performance-based, lose the weight. What did it look like? What did that transition look like from eating those things habitually to like going on a super crazy restrictive diet?
It was painful, but I know what it looks like. Common sense tells you that garbage in, garbage out.
Mm-hmm.
The more you eat, the more it's going to show up on the scale. To stop eating, again, I was doing this because I got you guys, and I also, the nutritionist was walking hand in hand. So that's out of pocket. So it was cold turkey, and it was difficult. Stress don't count calories.
Huh.
I'm a calorie counter.
I'm a big advocate of calorie counting too, but anyway, continue.
So that's what I was seeing, that my caloric intake was a fraction of what I had been used to. But then I started seeing results. And I guess results driven, I was losing weight, and it got easier and easier once you see those results. Now, in the gym, I was not able to, and Noah can probably attest to this, I'm extremely weak, and I wasn't getting stronger. So that was bothering me, because I had two priorities. It seemed like I wanted strength and I wanted weight loss. So I had to put the strength on a back burner and focus on the weight loss, and gradually start incorporating the things that in my diet that I'm going to need to give me the strength that I'm looking for.
Yeah, 100%. And before we kind of speak to that, I guess, what do you think has been the most helpful, beneficial thing on your journey of losing the weight into where you are right now? Like, we're going to transition to another phase, obviously, of getting you stronger, more performance-based. But what do you think, if you had to say this is the most helpful thing for me where I was at that helped me get to where I am now, what would that be, you think?
Results. Absolutely seeing that. Physically being able to look at the scale on a weekly basis. This is what I weighed on Monday. This is what I weigh on Friday. Week 2, this is what I weighed on Monday. This is what I weighed last Monday. Bang. And seeing that consistently, and knowing that I'm going to reach that goal. And once you make that decision that I'm seeing it happening, then I'm basically trusting the plan that I want to be here. I'm going to get here, by golly. And now I've got proof is in the scale.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, because didn't you take a DEXA scan? Like, do you remember what your body fat percentage was?
Yes. Yes, I
What-
did.
And have you taken it since?
No, I didn't go back for a repeat.
Oh, gotcha.
Didn't get a DEXA scan, but we did measure her with our equipment in the studio, which isn't,
Yeah.
quite as
it's not-
accurate, but
No.
No.
What was it?
it
Do you know?
was, I didn't have her first one, but she was down by quite a bit, significant margin. Down to, are you fine with you sharing the numbers, Deb?
Oh, share away.
So
There's
she
just
was,
numbers.
there you go, exactly. She's down to 30.5%. I remember doing the math of the weight she's lost in her body fat percentage, and it was, given the rate at which she was losing weight and how restrictive it was, I'm actually surprised at how much, based on, it wasn't a DEXA scan, so it's not quite as accurate as the first one, but it was actually a very large portion of it was fat.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what that means is your protein was on point and the strength training was appropriate to what you were doing so that you didn't do too much and lose it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool, Deb. Well, I guess last question and then we'll move on. So for someone who's just getting ready to start out on their journey, for someone who's been doing it and hasn't seen the results you have, what's the biggest advice you could give someone that was like that or there?
Truly examine what they're eating.
Mhm.
Track it. I mean, there's plenty, just information overload as to what constitutes good protein, good veggies, and what fruits are beneficial and don't contain as much sugar. And partnering has been a huge help for me, to get somebody to walk that with you, whether it be a partner, a friend, a coach. Hey, that's my first recommendation, by all means, but don't do it by yourself. Engage other folks in it, because that makes it fun.
Yeah. And it makes it enjoyable, thus sustainable, and then you can do it for a lifetime. No, thank you, Deb. That's awesome. All right, cool. All right. So now we're going to do a Q&A at the end for anybody who has questions, but Noah and I are going to do series 1 on basically how do you achieve sustainable weight loss after 40. All right. And so first things first is we're going to do a brief overview of what weight loss over 40 can kind of look like. So Noah, what are some of the main things you would want to point out there?
So, I mean, as we get older, we hear it all the time, metabolism tends to slow down, making weight loss a lot more challenging, which can be through a whole host of other factors. Number one is obviously exercise will play a very crucial role in an active lifestyle. That tends to decrease a lot as we get older. I can't tell you how many times I hear people, they're like, oh my gosh, I was so thin in college. And like, it's because they were playing intramural sports and they were on the team and like they were walking to class and like they would walk out on the town with their friends on every weekend. And the next thing you know, you're working a sedentary job and you're tired from it. So you go and sit on the couch and you're not playing any sports or anything. So you don't have all the exercise to keep the metabolism high. And so another thing would be that preserving muscle mass becomes a lot more important and also difficult as we age. You'll find that, osteoporosis is a concern, especially among older female populations. And so resistance training is going to be extremely important there. So you'll find is that it tends to be harder to lose weight, harder to retain or build muscle. And you tend to put on weight a lot more easily because your metabolism tends to get a lot slower just to start.
Yeah, exactly. And so basically the 3 questions we're going to answer over the next 3 weeks is essentially, how can I boost my metabolism? The second is, what's the best exercise routine for weight loss? And the third is, how can I maintain muscle mass while losing weight? All right. So today we're going to nail essentially the question, how can I boost my metabolism? All right. So understanding metabolism and its role in weight loss. So Noah can do this way better than I can, and he is going to articulate and go through BMR, TDEE, all these acronyms that I know about but cannot articulate as well as him. So Noah, can you go over basically how metabolism plays a role in weight loss and all the little acronyms, and then explain them well?
No pressure or anything. I'll do my best. So,
Yeah.
yes, metabolism, you can hear it used many times, but basically the colloquial term of metabolism is just when people refer to the amount of calories they burn. So when people are like, oh, I get older, my metabolism slowed down, what they mean is that I'm burning fewer calories, so it's a lot easier to put on weight. Because let's say if just throughout your day you're burning 2,500 calories and you're eating 2,000 calories worth of food, cool, you're gonna be losing weight. But if you decrease your activity level, you get older, which also just generally reduces your calories expended amongst a whole host of other effects. And you're only burning 1,500 calories and you're eating 2,000 calories, they're gonna be putting on weight. And so people tend to conflate a couple different terms as far as metabolism goes. So there's basal metabolic rate, BMR, which is basically the calories you burn at rest. So no activity, it controls for activity level and everything. So if you were just laying on the couch for 24 hours straight, however many calories you burn doing that is basal metabolic rate. There's also the TDEE, which is the one I like to use, which is total daily energy expenditure, which is pretty much the calories that you burn throughout an entire day, accounting for activity as well. So it's your basal metabolic rate plus the calories burned from activities. So there's both, what's the word I'm looking for here? There's both specific activity, the ones that you set out to do, like weightlifting, like cardio, you're like, I'm going to go for a walk. That is activities that you go out to do. There's also NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis,
Which is more important.
Yes, far more important and very underestimated. And it's even harder to track because it's subconscious. Because instead of saying, I'm going to go for a walk, it's just you tapping your fingers while listening to this conversation, your foot on the floor. It's you pacing back and forth on a phone call. It's you taking the stairs instead of the elevator. It's you sitting up instead of laying down. It's you standing instead of sitting. All those things add up to about 30 to 40% of your total calories expended.
Which
And
is
so
insane.
that's crazy. Meaning, like, let's say you burn 2,100 calories and you reduce all of your NEAT, 30% of that is like 700 calories. You're down to like 1,400 calories just from NEAT being reduced. So it's just a fancy way to say the calories you burn from activity that's not directed or specific exercise that you're setting out to do. And then on top of that, there's a little one too called the thermic effect of food, TEF, which is basically the calories that you burn in order to digest food. So as of note, part of the reason why we push protein so much is they actually burn the most calories digesting protein, and then you do burn a certain amount digesting carbs and fats as well. So all those together come to form your TDEE, which is your total daily energy expenditure. Did I miss anyone there, Colin?
Yeah, no, that's good. And then the way I put it, that's not nearly as cool, is basically when you're younger, you stinking have a Hemi and a V8. You are primed to burn as much fuel as humanly possible. As we age, right, wrong, or indifferent, our V8 and our Hemi becomes a little V4 and it's not turbocharged anymore. And you burn way, way, way less gas, right? So that's essentially what happens. And not nearly as cool, complicated terms. You go from a V8 to a stinking V4, and you can't even get up the stinking mountain anymore. All right. But yes. Now, how do you optimize your metabolism? You need to basically focus on 6 things. Okay. And those are obviously nutrition, okay, exercise, stress management, sleep are the big ones. Okay. Now, you hear us harping on protein all the time. So you want to focus on protein rich foods. Okay. So what are the big protein rich foods? Jeff, what's your favorite protein rich food?
Okay. So we have chicken.
Boom.
Sirloin strips.
Yep.
Then I have, whey protein and shakes, and I use Assure with protein in it. So, I supplement the meat protein with the, the powdered and the Assure. And sometimes I'll do like a really lean pork loin, So those are the main 3 ones.
Yep. And then, so Noah just talked about the thermal effects of food. And the reason protein is so awesome is just to keep it real simple. If you consume 100 calories of, let's say, chicken breast, your body is going to roughly use 10% of those calories, 10 to 15, depending on what it is, just to digest those calories. So it's really like you've only actually consumed 85 to 90 of those calories. Now, if that's sugar, guess what? Our stinking body just sucks it all in. So it doesn't work as well. And then the other thing is so that's nutrition focus. And then you have exercise focus. to optimize your metabolism. Okay, Noah, what's number one on that list?
Resistance training.
Resistance training, strength training, 100% every time, all the time. Okay, and if you only have 60 to 90 minutes a week to do some sort of intentional physical activity, that should be resistance training. If you have more time after that and you enjoy walking or whatever, jogging, whatever it may be, cardiovascular, you want to do strength training before that if you can only pick one thing every single time. Why is that? Go ahead, you can ad lib on this.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, for several reasons. The way I like to think about it is compound interest, as Colin might have said in a previous week or two. But basically, when you do cardio, like let's say you walk for 30 minutes and burn X amount of calories, let's say 100 just to make it easy. The second you stop walking, cool. You burn 100 calories, it's done. When you do resistance training, not only are you burning calories during that session, which is comparable to something low impact and low intensity like walking, but you're actually going to be building more muscle, which is a greater metabolism. So the next day when you come back, you'll burn like 106 calories. You burn 112 calories. It's not accurate, but just to illustrate the point. And so over the course of, months and years, you're going to be building on that engine, going back to that V8 or V6, whichever one was the high powered one. And so instead of just burning 100 calories and stepping off, you're actually going to be burning more and more calories, even at rest. During your NEAT, you'll be burning more calories because muscle at rest burns more calories than fat. So it's a compound effect. And then on top of that too, most people, although they don't have the vocabulary to describe it, typically when they first come in consult with us, the physique that they enjoy requires a low body fat percentage and a good muscle mass. Mm-hmm. So even women who come in, they're like, I don't want to look like a man, I just want to be toned. Tone just means low body fat percentage and good muscle mass. So it'll make you look better, it'll make you burn more calories, it'll make you feel better, and it'll help increase your calories burned through the future as well. So much better investment.
Yeah. So essentially, just to review real quick. So for nutrition, how you optimize it is protein-rich foods and fibrous vegetables. And then for the second one, it was what kind of training, what kind of activity should I do? Number one, strength training. And then if you're going to do cardio, I just did a whole last week. I don't know if you read any of my stuff, it was all about stinking cardio. I'm so sick of talking about cardio, but I definitely have a couple hard opinions on this. Okay. So number one, when it comes to cardio, if you don't enjoy it, it doesn't make sense to do it. Okay. Number two, if you don't have the time, do not sacrifice strength training for cardio. So assuming that's there, what are the best forms of cardio? Okay, the best form is what you habitually do. Now, scientifically, what is the best form? What's going to get the closest to your goal? And let's just even assume you can't do resistance training. You don't have the equipment. You lost your arms. You lost your legs. I don't know. You can't do push-ups and squats. What is that going to be? The closest way you can replicate resistance training without doing resistance training is what's called high-intensity interval training. And basically what that looks like is you do short bursts of very high intensity movement. So think of doing a sprint. You do a 100-meter sprint. You do a 50-meter sprint. You rest for, let's say it takes you 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds to do that sprint. You rest for generally double that, okay? And there's different paradigms and different ways to do this. That is the most efficient way to burn a lot of calories as well as do a kind of like resistance training. Now, what's the negative of that? Most of the people that we train, if they did that, the chances of them hurting themselves goes up really stinking high. Not everybody, but a lot of people. Okay. So typically I do not recommend high intensity interval training especially for people who are 40 plus, especially if they're just beginning, because the intensity involved and everything, it's just a great way to accidentally hurt yourself. Okay. But it does work. Now, steady state cardio. Steady state cardio is what everybody thinks of when they think of cardio. You think of jogging, rowing. You're instead of like high intensity interval training is you're in a Ferrari, you slam it and then you stop it, then you stop, and then you gas it and then you stop. You're just consuming tons. It's like driving in the city. You're consuming tons of fuel, even though you're really not going as far. Steady state cardio is when you're on the highway. You're cruising, super efficient, but you're not burning nearly as many calories. But the calories that you are burning, like 60% of them in theory is fat versus high intensity interval training, it's less. But once again, the con with that is Most people don't enjoy it. It takes a ton of time and it's not sustainable long term. Now, what do I think is the best approach for most people when it comes to cardio who are 40 plus trying to optimize their metabolism is just plain old simple walking. Okay. It's typically, it's easy. It's something you can find a friend to do with you. You can do with your kids, your grandkids, or even your pet. And it's a habit that you can just start with walking down to check the mail twice, go down and back twice. It's that easy. All right. So we hit, okay. So moving on, Noah, this is more your thing.
Quick, though, actually.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
One thing that's underrated about cardio, though, is it'll actually benefit you with resistance training. Again, resistance training will be better. But if you walk in and let's say you're either so out of shape or like your cardio is so bad that you can't literally breathe in enough, like you're losing breath before your muscles actually achieve failure. Basically, what's happening there is if your cardio is so bad, what can happen is that your oxygen becomes the limiting factor. So you can't oxygenate the blood to allow your muscles to work. And so you fail through your lungs before you fail through your muscle. So it will be beneficial in allowing you to be better at handling the higher intensity exercises, not feeling like you're going to pass out doing something like a heavy set of squats or deadlifts or something. So it is beneficial there as well. But yes, other than that, it is just better to the other benefit of the, like Kellen said, for the high intensity interval training, it's very high impact. And so it's going to be a lot harder to recover from. And so that can impede your performance in the gym for the resistance training. And again, we mentioned that's number one. So you don't want to do anything at the cost of that. So that's why walking is really good because it's lower impact. So the recovery is also a lot easier for you and it's not going to affect your workouts. So you sacrifice the time by having it take a lot longer, but the benefit is that you can do it without having to worry about how it conflicts with your workouts. And it tends to be a lot easier to recover from, especially people 40 plus where, you know, as Kellen said, like doing sprints or squat jumps or pretty much anything like a CrossFit style workout, your joints can be killing you. You're going to be risking a lot of injury. But one underrated part that cardio can help with.
And you know, talk about, because it's more your niche, like as far as managing stress, getting enough sleep are also super vital for optimizing your metabolism.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the reason it's more my niche is because it hits me so hard. Where pretty much since goodness, what, 5th grade, I've been like an insomniac, and so getting my sleep schedule on track. I mentioned the book, is that the week before, Sleep Smarter. Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks ago, Sleep Smarter, which actually, fun fact, Kellen Rana picked up, and she's like, I'm already doing the habits, and it's helping so much. So really cool that she's on it so quick. But yeah, so huge things here for metabolism. So cortisol is a hormone like any other that's very useful. And most of our body has a series of systems that can be useful, but once you go to the extremes, it tends to be really bad. So cortisol is actually your alertness hormone. So if you just had no cortisol, there'd be nothing to like wake you up in the morning. You'd be groggy all the time. You pretty much resemble that of like a catatonic or someone with like narcolepsy, right? And so it's actually very useful to keep you alert, keep you focused, stuff like that. However, when we usually experience it is when it's at the extreme end where it's way too high, we're stressed out of our minds, and it actually can cause several problems. So it's going to inhibit lipolysis, which is the breakdown of fats. So you don't want to have an overload of it. It's also going to encourage your body to break down muscle tissue instead of fat, because if it's going to inhibit how much you're breaking down fat, you got to get your energy from somewhere. So muscle is more likely to break down. So it's going to be harder to build muscle with a very high spike in cortisol. So stress levels being way too high. But also sleep can affect that too, because cortisol and melatonin are inversely proportional, meaning that as one comes up, the other comes down. So you'll find when you're more alert, cortisol's high, melatonin's really low. And so you want that throughout the day when you need to be awake. If you're at your job at like 11 a.m. and cortisol's really, really low and melatonin's high and you're falling asleep at your desk, that's not ideal. Now you don't want it too high because you're gonna be stressed out of your mind and not functioning well at all. But as the day goes on, cortisol tends to come down. You start to get sleepy, you're rubbing your eyes, you're like, yo, I gotta go to bed. Melatonin comes up to take its place. That's why you find there's so many supplements that are like melatonin supplements, or like tart cherry juice is like one that's kind of blowing up because it's naturally occurring melatonin. But pretty much all of them are finding ways to naturally increase your melatonin so that you're more tired and more likely to go to bed. So if you don't sleep properly, 7 to 8 hours under good conditions, and actually fun fact that blew Khan's mind the other week was that the hours between 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. are doubly restful, because given our history as humans, when the sun comes up, we want to be awake. When it comes down, we want to be asleep. And so when you're asleep between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., your body's primed for that hormonally, meaning melatonin's incredibly high, cortisol's incredibly low. And so it's actually, I'm not sure how they quantified this, but in the book, he frames it as twice as restful. So being asleep during those hours, you'll find even a lot more effective for reducing cortisol levels throughout the week versus sleeping at other times. So if you had to choose one period of time to sleep, if you could only sleep 4 hours, I'd recommend that. There's even studies where people who work night shift, like nurses, they get the same amount of sleep. They controlled for sleep, diet, exercise, controlled for BMI best they could. And they found that the ones that worked night shift versus day shift were 3 times more likely to develop cancer.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, it was absolutely insane. And so that's where having your circadian rhythm, which is pretty much the cycle of your day and night, be all sorts of jacked up, staying up too late, getting up too late. Those can have all sorts of effects on your cortisol, melatonin, which will decrease your body's likelihood to metabolize fat, increase your likelihood to catabolize muscle. And then also you're going to be really tired and groggy, which will increase cravings. You won't feel as full when you satisfy those cravings because your body's like, we're tired. What do? Sugar. That gives us energy. Sweet. give me some sugar. That's where Deb's going to be eating that tub of ice cream on the kitchen floor. And then on top of that, it's going to reduce NEAT, because when you're dead tired, if you stay up all night, you're not going to be fidgeting. You're not going to be walking back and forth on the phone call. You're not going to be sitting up. You're going to be laying on the couch or sitting down as much as you can throughout the day. So it's going to affect all of those. On top of that, here's a fun fact for you for cortisol you might not know. So a lot of people, they talk about, I sit down with a bottle of beer or a glass of wine to relax from the day. Because what it does is it reduces cortisol levels. They did a study, and this is from Andrew Huberman. I forget which study he pulled it from, but if you consume 2 to 3 drinks daily, so nothing crazy, you're not getting wasted, not blackout drunk, but just something to relax and unwind with, your body adapts. And so it's like, our cortisol levels, we have this substance that'll reduce it for us. Okay, cool. So tell you what, we don't have to work hard to reduce it. So your baseline cortisol level increases. So your body says, this helps us reduce stress. We're not going to reduce stress anymore. Take the wheel. And so people who use that to relax actually end up having a higher cortisol level, higher stress levels, and are worse at handling stress than people who don't. That's enough of a tangent for now, though.
Yeah. No, that's good. All right. So now we're gonna do a little bit of a pop quiz real quick. So what are the main factors that influence metabolism after 40? What's the first? Anybody remember? Y'all are scared. It's okay. The first is age related. Okay. Sorry, what'd you say, Deb?
Nutrition.
Okay. So nutrition is a factor. Yep. So we have age related. Okay. Muscle loss is a big one. That's another reason our metabolism slows down. Okay. Our hormones, especially for women when you go through menopause, right? Other factors are activity level, nutrition, and then lifestyle factors. Okay.
What about metabolism?
Sorry, what?
Metabolism.
Yeah. So those are the factors that influence your metabolism. So essentially, we'll hit them real quick. So there are 5 factors that directly influence your metabolism, especially after 40. The first one is age-related changes. Okay, and that's where we talked about going from a V8 to a V4. All right. As we age, our motor gets smaller. Right, wrong, or indifferent. And the reason it gets smaller is because number 2, our muscle mass takes a big hit. For men, I believe it's age 25. After the age of 25, if you are not doing some form of resistance training, a stereotypical male is going to gain, is going to gain 1 pound of fat a year, maybe 2, and lose 1 pound of muscle. I think that's what it is. They gain a pound of fat and they lose a pound of muscle every year for the rest of their life. It doesn't seem like much, but compounding, that takes a huge hit. Here's the thing. Let's say at the age of 25, you changed nothing else, but you just did resistance training and you still even gain that 1 pound of fat, which would be unlikely, but just say you did, you would still retain your muscle mass, thus keeping your V8. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So important. And the third thing is like hormones play a huge role. And this is, for men, it comes in testosterone, okay, which is why like at age 35, 40, a lot of people, especially now, because men's testosterones are just tanking hardcore. TRT is super popular, or testosterone boosting supplements. For men, that's huge. For women, what happens as they get older is menopause. That stinking destroys it. It makes losing weight and gaining weight, makes gaining weight super easy, and it makes losing weight significantly harder. Okay. And then the other are your activity levels. So what your NEAT, what does your habitual day look like? And most people, they're a lot of the time they're sitting at their chair like I am, looking at their computer on a Zoom call, or typing or doing whatever it is they do. That's where most people live. So just their NEAT, that activity, just goes down. An easy, simple way to do that, guys, is just adopt a kid. No, I'm joking. You'd be up the entire time.
Or watch Kellen's kids.
And
Yes.
guess what? You'll be foster a kid. Go to the Boys and Girls Club a couple hours a week. You'll be set. All right. And then the fifth one is lifestyle factors play a huge role. And that's where, is it a sedentary lifestyle? Your eating choices, your nutrition, what's that look like? How much sleep? That's kind of what Noah and I just hammered on earlier. All right. So with that said, because we need to we're going to leave some time for Q&A. Noah, what are what are the top strategies we discussed when we were, talking about this? What are the top strategies we recommend for boosting your metabolism?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So as far as nutrition goes, make sure that you're consuming a very high protein diet, both because of the high thermic effect, and then also because it's going to be very satiating. And so you're going to be less likely to eat a ton of that crap because you're going to be full and satisfied. Incorporating obviously resistance training, as we talked about, is going to be huge. So building up that muscle mass. They're also going to be burning calories during that lift, and then during the recovery phase, there's something called EPOC, excess post-oxygen consumption, which is pretty much your body getting back to regular levels. So it'll be a little bit of extra calories burned there too, which is fun. On top of that, you could do some form of cardio, whether it's high intensity interval training or steady state. Both of those will help increase calorie expenditure. Managing stress and optimizing sleep, as we talked about, will be huge because reducing cortisol levels, making sure that your hormones are well balanced so that your body's predisposed to wanting to work off that fat, and it's not difficult to maintain that NEAT and those high energy levels throughout the day. Where you're actually going to be pacing back and forth for the phone call. You're going to be taking the stairs. You're not going to be crashing on the couch the second you get home from work, stuff like that. So those would be some of the big ones I'd recommend off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then we just talked about managing stress and optimizing sleep, and that would be kind of the big third. All right. And then, so here's some misconceptions about metabolism, or ones that we hear is one is your metabolism is solely determined by your genetics, and it cannot be changed. I have a slow metabolism. It is what it is, as they eat their ice cream. Okay. Genetics do play, but genetics do play a big role. But lifestyle factors such as your diet, exercise, sleep, everything we just talked about, dramatically can impact your metabolism. All right. So you do have the power to influence and change and improve your metabolism through healthy habits. Okay. That's misconception number one. Misconception number two is that there are certain foods or supplements that have magical metabolic boosting properties. Okay. Now, TRT, which is testosterone, it actually does. So that is legit because it's literally a supplement of our hormone. But most of these superfoods that you see marketed and advertised are just really expensive urine. Okay. Trust me, when I was younger, I will admit I've invested thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars on every stinking new little supplement out there that was just, it ends up being expensive urine. The only natural supplement that I would really recommend in that category is creatine. That is the only one that has been proven to be safe and effective. But here's the thing, if you take creatine, you're magically going to gain 2 or 3 pounds because it makes you retain water. So don't freak out there. But anyway, any other misconceptions you can think of, Noah?
So yeah, well, I love, first of all, on those two, misconception of metabolism being determined by genetics. Big thing with that is that, just a fun psychological aside, anytime someone's severely unhappy in their overall life, it's typically their locus of control is out of order. Yes. So locus of control means what you believe you have influence in your life. And so as soon as you say, oh, I can do nothing to lose weight because of my genetics, you'll be miserable. You won't try anything. You'll give up on stuff so quickly because you're going to start already assuming that you're going to fail. So the more you can adopt responsibility and understanding of what you can affect and focusing more on that than anything you can't, that's going to improve your mental game, your headspace, your motivation and drive so much more. So definitely want to touch on that a little bit more for that one. And then for number 2, that one that Kellen talked about, if you ever watch Dr. Oz, pretty much every single thing on there is something you would want to stay away from. That's like the epitome. He even had to appear in front of the Senate, and they're like, you're a doctor. We're holding you accountable for recommending these things because your medical opinion sounds like you're saying it, that it's actually going to be useful and help your clients or your audience.
Just his bottom line.
Yes. But they're like, there's no studies to substantiate this. So how do you say that? Like, we want to take your license from you. And his response was, I see myself less as a doctor, more as a cheerleader. So if something that even won't help them will get them to try, I'm excited to do that. So he's trying to wiggle his way out through like technical terms, but don't try anything there. So all the supplements, you can use your money in much better ways. So some other ones that people believe that eating very few calories will speed up their metabolism and lead to faster weight loss. In reality, if you restrict calories way too low, and so that's why I always tell people, I'm like, hey, lose about 1% of your body weight per week. That's how you know you're in a good range. Because if you cut it down too far, A, it's not going to be sustainable. B, there's no way you're going to get protein or your micronutrients in. So you're going to have all sorts of deficiencies. That's going to affect your energy levels. Your NEAT is going to go down. You're just going to feel miserable. And number 3, you're going to lose a lot of muscle mass along the way. And so there's nothing more depressing than losing like 15, 20 pounds and be like, I did it. And then you step on the scale and you're like, oh, you only lost muscle, maybe a pound or 2 of fat. And you're like, cool, sweet. And then you look skinny fat, which is something you hear all the time. So that's never fun. Another one is that cardio is the best way to boost metabolism. And so while they do burn calories, it won't burn your resting metabolism. And it won't have a huge impact after the workout. As I mentioned, as soon as you step off that treadmill, as soon as you walk through that door after a walk, you're done burning calories. Whereas the compounding effect of resistance training, in contrast, will help you burn calories throughout every activity you do for the rest of your life, and maintaining what you have, especially if you're in a calorie deficit, maintaining the muscle mass you have to make sure you keep that engine running. And then finally, that you can spot reduce fat. Oh yes, love that one. So I get this all the time.
I just want to lose it right here, Noah.
Yes, exactly.
I just want to lose it right here and then in my belly, my lower belly. I look great everywhere else. I just need to lose the fat there. What are the exercises for that?
Oh, absolutely. That is one that's so tough. And so many times we get all the time, like, so I don't really need to lose weight. I just need to tone this. That's another one too. I don't need to lose weight. I just need to tone, which will require loss in body fat percentage, which requires loss in fat, which requires a loss in weight. So you can't spot reduce fat. It gets put on sequentially.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, based on your hormones. So you'll find men will put it on in a different order than women, but typically midsection will get it. That'll be the last to go. That's why people are so jealous and envious of people with abs, because that tends to be the last portion for it to come off. And then for men, it's going to be stomach, chest, arms, back, and then legs. For women, it tends to be, hips and thighs, stomach, arms. So that's why this little section here tends to get a ton of attention amongst the female clients.
And back boobs. I didn't even know what back boobs were until I started training ladies.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, it sounds like some implants gone wrong, right?
Exactly.
And so
just a caveat on that is the way I like to talk about fat reduction is basically we're all genetically predisposed. Oh my word, predisposed. I can't say that word. To put body fat in certain areas of like for me, it's my love handles and my stomach. If I gain weight anywhere, that's the first place it goes, and that's the last place it leaves. And it's just like a camel. We're genetically, we are just going to store body fat for whatever reason in certain areas way sooner. Okay, because that's way, depending on your worldview, the way you were created and designed to be, or the way we evolved to be. Okay. And right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what's going to happen. And typically the area where you want to reduce is your problem area, is that area where you genetically just can hold and body fat just clings to. And there's no amount of special exercises that we can tell you to do or that anybody can tell you to do. And there's no amount of stinking cold ice or cool sculpting or body contouring or all this other bull crap or waist trainers that you can use that are going to make that area magically get better. Okay. nutrition, resistance training, sprinkle in some cardio is going to give you your results. Okay. And then, man, I had a caveat I really wanted to nail, but I stinking forgot what it was with that.
If it helps you think, what I will say about that one is that let's say you want to try to spot reduce your arms. I understand there's still a psychological benefit to when you're working out the area, you feel like
You feel it burning. Yes.
So while that won't spot reduce the fat, what I will do is sometimes program that in there, because the psychological benefit of doing that will make you more likely to come back to it and continue exercising. So don't discount that. So sometimes we play our cognitive biases for our benefit. And yeah, so make sure you don't talk yourself out of that or feel like you have to neglect it completely. On top of that too, if you do build more muscle mass there, let's say you don't even lose any fat, a greater proportion of the mass in that area will be protein, or will be muscle, sorry. And so as you lose it, it will look better as you lose the fat. And it will look more toned even as you lose the weight. So there'll be benefit there, but it won't be losing the fat because of the exercise. I saw you already, Kellen.
Yes. So I just learned this statistic, and this comes from like these three experts I listened to from a podcast called Mind Pump. This is crazy. They did a statistical analysis, and you're more likely to be a millionaire than you are to get six-pack abs. So it is easier to become a millionaire than it is to get six-pack abs. How crazy is that?
That's
anyway, so really what that says is the goal should be health to get lean and healthy. And then if you really want to go crazy and get six-pack abs, you can, but just know that that is exponentially harder than the work it requires to become a self-made millionaire. But anyway, I just found that super fascinating. So now we have about 6-10 minutes. If there are any questions over anything that we talked about, or even just like whatever is going on in your training or anything, questions, comments, or concerns.
I have a question.
All right.
So what is your feelings on taking multiple vitamins? Because I've always taken a multivitamin daily. But I have multivitamins and minerals and the Ensure I take and the food I eat. So but I also had a vitamin D deficiency. My physician put me on vitamin D for a while. And that's probably during the winter. But so yeah, do you think it's worthwhile or not worthwhile?
So no. So like I take a multivitamin. I think it's worthwhile because like you can get more expensive multivitamins, right? But if you go the middle of the ground, you're still only looking at $20, maybe $30 a month. I feel like that, like it's not going to hurt you. And if there is some benefit, I'm happily going to invest the $20, $30 a month or whatever it is in a multivitamin. I think that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And then as far as the vitamin D, that's a no-brainer who is the Dr. Kirkpatrick, or who's the lady, Noah?
The Dr.
Who
Ron
did this?
Patrick.
Dr.
Yeah.
Ruth?
No. But basically during COVID, one of the biggest markers that people who were able to get COVID and recover rapidly, or maybe not even get it, was because they had high vitamin D levels. Okay. So I think if you're not supplementing with vitamin D, you're crazy. Not crazy, but you probably, unless you're in the sun a lot, you probably should be. Because this I didn't know, but vitamin D acts like a hormone in your body.
Yeah.
And it's super. So that I would recommend. When I said I would only recommend creatine, what I was referring to is from like a performance muscle building point of view, right? Because there's pre-workout, there's post-workout, there's all this stuff. Really, caffeine, creatine, protein are your main ones that actually are going to help and elicit a response that are completely natural. I
learned during COVID that zinc was beneficial as well as with vitamin D.
Yeah, magnesium and zinc are big. They help you sleep and recover. Yep.
Yeah.
So basically the summary is that think of it as a supplement. So it's kind of a barrier there, but low bioavailability is something to consider too. So in whole foods, we tend to be much better at making use of the micronutrients that we do during the supplements. So not that you're doing it, Jeff. I know you're eating a ton of whole foods. I see what you have. So you're doing perfectly fine there. But for many people who are like, oh, I can just eat crap and take a multivitamin, there'll be some,
No.
yeah. And there are
that's
some,
a great disclaimer, Noah.
yeah. So don't think it'll replace a whole foods diet. And then also keep in mind too, don't think that more is always better, because there are some that are toxic at higher levels. So for instance, vitamin C, or for instance, one like calcium supplements. If you take those with low bioavailability, you can even get like kidney stones and stuff. So don't just keep taking more hoping it'll cover you and be better. Take a healthy amount as a supplement to whole foods, not a replacement.
I've always felt that, your body will excrete what it doesn't need. So it'll absorb what it needs and excrete what it doesn't, right?
The exception to that is there are vitamins that are water-based and vitamins that are fat-based. The vitamins that are fat-based will store in your fat. And if you go crazy, it can become toxic.
Yeah.
But as a general rule, like the multivitamins most people consume are water-based, and yeah, you're probably just going to pee them out if you have too much.
Okay.
Absolutely. Good question, Jeff.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Deb, Jan.
I have a question regarding cardio, and not necessarily so much for calorie burn, but maybe for heart health. Is there anything that you would recommend, like home equipment, like treadmill, elliptical, a rowing machine, that would help with that? Or do you just advocate just walking?
So if you, like from cardiovascular health, if like you're just concerned with cardiovascular health, what the science has shown, if you're doing strength training 2 or 3 times a week, you're getting the same benefits you would get from just doing cardiovascular exercise. But it doesn't hurt if you enjoy it to do more of it. So my question would be, Jan, what do you enjoy doing? Because buying a piece of equipment like that is relatively expensive, and most people, after they buy it, it just sits in there like it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, like a stair machine.
So the most effective cardio equipment is the one that you're actually going to use. So like, what do you enjoy doing?
Well, I've had a treadmill. That's just so boring. So I didn't know elliptical, since it's, since you're working the upper body and the lower body at the same time, I didn't know if that would be more effective or if I would enjoy it more. I don't know.
So as far as what's more effective, what's going to be more effective and use more muscles is going to be a rower. Like if you're going for like effectiveness and you're getting a home piece of equipment, I vote rower or the skier. I don't know if you've seen that. It's nasty.
Okay.
But if I were you, I would definitely, it would be worth the investment to pay, I don't know, find a gym that has those things and try it out to see if you'll habitually use it and enjoy it, because most people buy those things and don't use them. Which is why walking, it's cheap, it's easy, and you can habitually do it. But if you're just like, what's the most effective thing that I could get the biggest bang for my buck from? If I habitually do, my vote would be at home. My vote would be rowing. And then a cheap hack you can do, that's good, and it's a little bit of HIIT, a little bit of rowing is, and Noah, you know more of where she's at physically, but ball slams are stinking dynamite, okay? Because it's high intensity interval training, plus you have the ball and you're slamming it really, really good, and it's cheap. You can do, if you don't have a slam ball, you can do kettlebell swings, okay, which can also be effective, but the programming of it needs to be on point. No, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Jan's pretty jacked. If you have a light ball, probably ball slams would be good. Just be careful on, knees and hips if there's any problems we're feeling there. The rule of thumb I use for cardio is, like Kellen said, what you enjoy, because that'll matter far more than like your adherence to it is what matters most. And don't get stuck with thinking about what muscle groups are working or like any problems there, because for instance, if I wouldn't tell you, hey, we're going to strengthen your legs, let's go walk, right? That's going to be the resistance. side of things. So you want to think about this as how it's helping your heart, right? And they recommend up to 150 minutes is where you're seeing a ton of benefit. Obviously, resistance training overlaps with that a lot, especially if you do it at a certain intensity and pace that allows you to get almost out of breath. So don't think of it as, hey, let me make sure I get a full body cardio because I want to make sure I'm developing the muscles all similarly. Now, rowing, depending on the resistance you put on, who knows, there might be some there. But it's more about what you enjoy. And the rule of thumb I use is there's different ventilatory thresholds, basically the rate at which you need to bring in oxygen to maintain performance. And so without getting too scientific, basically the zone you want to be in, that'll be most beneficial typically. If you want to do anything longer than the interval training, would be a difficulty where it's slightly difficult to maintain a conversation. So if you were like walking with someone, you want it to be at a point where every once in a while you have to be like, okay, so anyway, and then continue on with your story. So anything that gets you to that point, that's going to be low impact. It's going to be not interfere with your workouts, and it's going to be still working your heart in such a way that it's going to be healthy. So that's kind of the rules of thumb I use. So whether it's walking or swimming or rowing or elliptical, totally fine. As long as it doesn't hurt.
Stairs.
Yeah, walking stairs. As long as it doesn't hurt you, like no joints are in pain, and you don't find it affecting your workouts, and you're going to make it, it's going to be slightly difficult to breathe, you'll be totally fine there.
Okay. Thank
And
you
so
so much.
typically, yeah, so typically when it comes to cardio, variety is the key. Just to be like, having been there and done that since I was 12, variety is key for sport. So like the way I get my quote unquote cardio in is jujitsu, grappling with other sweaty, disgusting, stinky human beings. I'm kind of being funny, but like that's super taxing. Noah plays soccer.
And boxing too.
That's probably like, you're just going to do one thing. People who can consistently do one thing habitually, generally it's some sport of recreation or sport, hiking, kayaking, pickleball, whatever. But when it comes to actual cardio, variety is generally best. But awesome. Great question. Well, all right, guys. Well, I need to run and feed my toddler Riker, but it was fun. Thank you for coming. Good questions. Next week, we're going to hit on what's next week's question we're talking about? It's on metabolism. I forget what it was.
An effective
already.
Exercise routine.
What is the best exercise routine for weight loss? Yeah. So we're talking, well, shoot, if you guys all train with us, you pretty much know it, but we'll go over it. All right. But see you guys. Thank you. Invite your friends and family if you want. We'd love to have them. All right. Bye.
Okay, everyone.